there in Spain, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I built this DIY coffee table with welded steel legs. Now I don't necessarily need another coffee table. I know I've built several lately and they're all on my channel, so I will link to those for you. But the reason I wanted to build this one was because I just wanted to sort of experiment with different leg designs and get some more experience with my welding. I know a lot of you don't weld, and I hope you'll still enjoy watching how it's done and just sort of seeing the process. And if you want to build this table and you don't weld, you can always order prefabricated metal legs online, and I will link to some of those in the description box below for you. Be sure to stay till the end of the video so you can see the absolute disaster that happened when I assembled this table for the first time. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell, and let's get started. First, I'm going to show you how I made the legs. So I cut two pieces of 2-inch flat steel bar to 26 inches long each using my portable bandsaw. I typically use cutting oil or wax to keep my blade from overheating, but I didn't have any on hand, so I just went without. And my bandsaw blade broke toward the end, so yeah, use lubricating oil of some kind. Then I cut 4 pieces of 1/2-inch steel rod to 16 inches long each and 4 pieces at 19 inches long each. When my bandsaw blade broke toward the end, I switched to my angle grinder with the metal cutoff disc to finish cutting the steel rod. Then I swapped that out with a flap disc to grind the ends of each rod as well as the flat bar. You have to have a really clean surface to weld, so any part that was going to be welded together, I used my angle grinder on to get rid of all that grimy residue. Raw steel is super messy, so I tried to grind the ends of the rods to a slight angle also to make them easier to connect, but I didn't do a very good job. I used my magnet clamps to position my steel bar upright. These magnet clamps come in extremely handy, by the way, so I will link to those in the description box for you. I knew I wanted the outside rods to be angled in a bit, so I cut scrap pieces of wood to a 15-degree angle to use sort of as a jig to lay my steel rod against to ensure that they would both be welded at the same angle. I marked 1 inch in from each side and lined up my angled scrap wood with those marks. Then I laid my 16-inch long steel rod alongside each of those scrap pieces of wood and used magnet clamps to hold them in place. This ensured that the rods would be welded 1 inch in from each end of the flat steel bar. Once my outer rods were in place, I positioned 2 of my 19-inch long rods, creating V shapes that crisscross in the middle, and I placed them so that the 16-inch and 19-inch rods were about 7 inches apart. When I had everything positioned the way I wanted it, I tack welded everything in place, and then I went back and finished up my welds, and then flipped it over and welded the other side. And then I repeated this entire process for the second leg piece. By the way, I'm using my Forney Easy Weld 140 MP machine, which I love and highly recommend for beginners, so I will link to that for you as well. After everything was welded together, I used my angle grinder with a flap disc to smooth out my very messy welds. Guys, I told you I'm a beginner, so don't look too closely and please don't judge too harshly. I pre-drilled holes with the multi-purpose drill bit meant for use with metal so that I could easily attach these to the tabletop later on. Next, I cleaned each pair of legs with acetone to get the rest of the residue off before painting. I spray painted each leg with rusty metal primer, and then when that dried, I sprayed them with metallic gold spray paint. This is my absolute favorite metallic gold spray paint, so I will of course link to this as well. While the legs dried, I turned my attention to building the tabletop. I cut 5 1x6 boards to 29 inches long each using my miter saw, and then I cut 2 1x4 boards to 28 inches long each. I laid my 1x6 boards next to each other and then positioned my 1x4 piece perpendicular to them and then marked where the center of each board lined up with it so I would know where to drill my pocket holes. These 1x4s will sort of serve as mini breadboard ends. By the way, I wanted this to be really quick and simple, so I'm using pocket hole joinery, but of course you could use dowels or just glue up the boards or use whatever type of joinery you want. I used my Kreg jig and the drill bit that came with it to drill pocket holes where I had previously marked. After I drilled all my holes, I gave everything a good sanding with my orbital sander. I used 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws to attach each 1x6 board. Then I turned it and attached the 1x4 pieces perpendicular to them on each end. For the ends, I used 1 1/2 inch pocket hole screws because, as you will see shortly, the 1 1/4 inch were a little bit too short, so they didn't hold well. I should have just used glue as well, which you totally can, but I build so much furniture that I like for it to be easy to disassemble. And with that said, definitely stay until the outtakes at the end if you want to see what happened when I used the 1 1/4 inch screws on the ends. It wasn't good, people. It was not good. Next, I stained it using Varathane stain in the color Provincial. I applied it with a foam brush and then I wiped the excess away with a clean cotton cloth, and then when that dried, I sealed it with satin wipe-on poly. When everything was dry, I brought everything inside and assembled the table by attaching the legs with 1/2 inch long screws, screwing them into the holes I pre-drilled in the flat steel bar. However, disaster struck, and the table fell apart because I originally used the 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws, like I mentioned, to attach the ends. And when I flipped the table over, I grabbed it by the ends and they fell off, and the table collapsed and one of the legs broke, so I had to re-weld it together. You'll see. You will see. Just wait. You will see. All right, so we just had a little bit of a disaster. The coffee table broke into several pieces. I didn't use long enough screws for the end pieces, and so when I grabbed it to pick it up, I picked it up by the end pieces and they broke off. And so the table collapsed and one of the legs broke. So apparently my welds weren't strong enough on that leg. Lesson learned, I'll do better next time. But of course it's very frustrating, and now I have to go fix that and re-weld it. So that's what I'll do. Okay, so I re-welded and repainted, and now we are good to go and ready to attach everything and flip it over carefully this time. As I mentioned, if you don't weld, you could always use prefabricated metal legs. There are a lot of different designs on the market, so you could totally put your own design spin on this by choosing a different style of legs, and that's it. I do have a written tutorial for this project on my blog, which I will also link to for you. And now for the outtakes. Designs and shit.
Try to do this without it breaking.
Some hugs?
Of course you can have some hugs.
Back to my channel, and there goes a car, truck.
Oh, and be sure to stay to the end so that...
Go away. Jonah, quiet, I have to record something.
That happened when I was assembling it is bad.
Thanks so much for watching. You can find me online at erinspain.com and on social media at erinspainblog. In the meantime, please enjoy some of my other videos. Thanks.